There's a lot of people that say these investigations should not be handled by a department. They should be handled by an independent organization that has no bias when they're gathering those facts.
Right. Lakers championship, yeah, it was kind of crazy, right, in 2001?
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys respond?
Oh, yeah.
Well, who didn't respond, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody's
all 300 from the city.
That's right, all 300.
I've worked for some really educated, stupid people. And I've worked for with some really smart, uneducated people.
Yeah.
The department has really done a disservice to itself by putting that policy into effect, because you've got people that had military service for years and they did not have the ability to go to college, and they come out and they are absolutely fantastic leaders.
Yes.
You know, at the end of the day, it's just kind of hard to fill the shoes of a police officer.
Welcome back to Internal Affairs, a police podcast. Your host, Marlon Marachi, and like I always say, it is a special guest. They're all special guests, but Alan Kreitzman over here, it's going to take me back to when I first started right out of the academy. Alan, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Do you remember when we first met?
I don't. I'm sure you're going to tell me. I kind of don't remember. What I do know is I thought you were kind of mean. You were all business, and I learned a lot. I don't know. Kind of fill in the gaps for me, please.
So you, I believe, just came out of the Navy.
Yes.
And you show up, and sitting in a car with you, you would not shut up. You would talk constantly. It was like sucking the air out of the car. But you were always attentive and always excited about doing the job that we did, which makes it more enjoyable for a field training officer, an FTO, to provide training.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's going to be the 2023. By the way, it's the last show of the year of a hit, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure we're going to remember a lot of stuff that happened back to 1999 is when that would be January of 1999 when I got there. And so, look, we start the episode off with these two core questions, and before, after that, we're going to get into a trip down memory lane to get to know you a little bit better. But let's do it, man. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, right? Rate the importance of internal affairs in a police department, and why.
Okay, so I'm going to answer it in two ways.
Yes, please.
Right? So when we talk about internal affairs, we talk about internal affairs investigations. You have the actual division, essentially, of internal affairs, but most internal affairs investigations are done at the divisional level. The investigations come in, they go to a supervisor in the division, if it's not of a criminal nature, bias policing, and it's handled and resolved at a divisional level. So when I think about internal affairs itself, I think about more pressing, more cases that are going to bring notoriety to the department. So I would rank internal affairs at a 10. However, that being said, when we say areas of 10, when you came on, what were you told was the most important division or position in the department?
Patrol. Hey, you know what? You're here out in the streets, and you have to provide that service and patrol. The streets, man. You know, being out in the streets is service.
Exactly. But so with your time on over 20 years, does patrol get that focus that that everybody says it's the backbone of the department?
Yes.
However, everything comes out of patrol. I'm sure your listeners are not aware of this, but on average, on a daily basis, there's about 300 officers in the field for the city of Los Angeles handling radio calls. Out of, we went up to 10,000.
Correct.
Now we're down to, the department's down to,
yes.
I say we because I still feel
we are
part of the organization.
We are alums. We will always will be.
So the department's down to 9,200, but generally speaking, on a day-to-day basis, there's 300 officers in the field fielding radio calls, handling emergency response.
Help me out here. You're saying 300 in just the city itself?
Correct.
Really?
Well, you think about it, an average division has 8 cars.
Correct.
2 officers per car.
Okay.
and you spread that out to 20, 24 divisions.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
mind-numbing, actually.
You know what? You actually bring up a really good point, because when I came on and started my probationary period, the last thing I ever thought about was internal affairs. I didn't get introduced into this type of function until I made sergeant,
Right.
which was 10 years later. And so, absolutely. The backbone does not get recognized, and I know the question does bring up, certain points of view, because it is important, but yet when we start talking about importance, what are we really talking about?
Exactly.
And the fact of the matter is that, you know what, you're going to call 911, and guess who's going to be there to help you?
Exactly. But so when you talk about internal affairs, you've got to remember the citizens pay for what they want. And the department, any type of law enforcement agency, should be clear and precise on what they're supposed to be doing. There should be no behind the curtains type productivity. The citizens have a right to know what's going on. So that's where the importance of internal affairs comes in.
Absolutely.
Internal affairs provides the continuity and the respect that the department needs to go out and do the position and the jobs that the community wants done.
Absolutely. No, very well said, Al. I appreciate that. The second question is, as we're talking about this, and I know you know this, you're a watch commander. We'll get down to the CV, if you will, and you've also investigated. So I got to ask you, what's your opinion, or what are your thoughts about an investigating officer as it relates to misconduct or alleged misconduct? What do you think their job is, or what's the bottom line?
Okay, so the bottom line is, this is my belief, that the actual investigator themselves should be finding the facts. Wherever they take you, whether it's good, it's bad, you turn every stone, like you like to say.
No stone goes unturned.
And find all the facts. You put those facts together, and it's not the investigator's job to dole out punishment, make a decision. It's the investigator's job to gather that information, provide it to the person who ultimately is going to review it and make the determination. The problem that happens with some of the investigators is they prejudge the facts of the case, and they don't turn all the stones. They don't get all the information. And that's a detriment to not only the officer, but the community member or whoever brought that allegation in front of them, because they're not getting the true focus or the true picture of what the outcome of that investigation was.
Boom. No, I couldn't agree with you more. It becomes a little self-serving. You have those pre-notions, those pre-biases. Hey, I know Al. I don't like him. I don't know Marlon, because he's that guy. So maybe I won't turn every single stone. And to come think about it too, in terms of the community, right? So here you're making a complaint. How are you supposed to know how transparent you were if you didn't turn every single stone, or whatever lead you had, you weren't able to open up that door and investigate? So I couldn't agree with you more. It's so important. It's a really good question. I know when we teach at a Savage Training Group, our internal affairs officer involved shooting investigation course, it's one of the core questions we ask, and a group of sergeants and lieutenants, really have some good conversations, no any different than what we're having now, about the actual role, the duties and responsibilities. And it's just very, very important to know. So I thank you for that.
Well, just to add to that, though, too.
Please.
You've got a lot of people have questions. Can an organization investigate itself? So there's a lot of people that say these investigations should not be handled by a department. They should be handled by an independent organization that has no bias when they're gathering those facts.
Right.
Now, my counter to that is, I truly believe that the investigations are done well and they're done properly.
Correct.
I think where the problem is the people that are reviewing the information, and or even the investigators or the officers that are being investigated don't stay true to the organizational flow of what the investigation is supposed to be.
Yes. It's a fancy way of saying what I just learned the other day is influence peddling.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, someone in there in these levels of review says, you know what? I don't think we should do that. We should do this instead.
Exactly.
And yeah, and that sucks. Hey, that's the truth, and that's the way we go. Well, look, you are my first guest that so kindly to provide me with a trip down memory lane. So here we go. I'm not even going to put up my glasses because I can actually kind of see. So let's see. March 27, 1989, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
389.
389. Let me ask you this: when you in 389, what did you think of IA in 389? That's a fair question compared to what you.
That's a very fair question. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with them, so I was on probation. I was 20. I went into the academy at 21 years old.
21 years old.
I turned 22 in the academy.
Wow.
My very first complaint, I was on probation, and I remember this. So I graduated the academy in October of 90.
Okay.
And then I was assigned to Northeast Division.
Okay.
And there was a court case that I received a subpoena for.
Okay.
And I did not show up because it was 4th of July holiday weekend.
Okay.
And not that I was out partying. I did not know I was supposed to go. So that was my very first encounter with an internal affairs investigation, which came back not sustained. I have 0 sustained complaints.
Let's just make that clear.
Out of all 33 years, 0 sustained complaints.
But let me ask you this. You must have freaked out. You must have felt like, oh my God, it's the end of the world that I got this.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. Hey, listen, I want to do this justice because this is so good. Starting salary, $31,000 a year.
Yeah.
You were making $14 an hour.
Yeah.
Operation Hammer.
Yes.
That would be
Gang task force.
right. What was that
Gates.
quote? What was a quote that he said? We'll stop crime before crime. Something along those lines.
Yep.
Where we we would roll 4 deep,
Oh, yeah.
and we just go out and
Gang members.
catch
were
as many
the
gang
catch of
members
the day.
before the crime even occurred.
Absolutely.
Love that. No longer. Let's see. Then you had tell me about that. The Nancy Reagan drug raid in 1989.
So in 1989, Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan had the, I can't remember the acronym, the drug
Okay.
thing.
DARE.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Wow.
Yeah,
They actually are the founders of DARE.
correct.
I didn't know
And
that.
what happened is they used the Ram in Pacoima to take down a drug house. It was the first actual serving of a warrant with the Ram to take down a cocaine dealing drug house.
Wow. No longer required to wear tie with the jacket on.
So
Talk to me.
So what happened is when you wore your jacket,
Okay.
you had to have your tie on. It was because you looked like you were in Class A's.
Got
So
it.
for your listeners, Class A's is long sleeve shirt and a tie. Class C was a short sleeve shirt, no tie. You were considered in Class A's when you wore your jacket, so you had to wear your tie. So Chief Gates decided in one of the uniform committee reviews, when you wore your jacket, you no longer had to wear a tie. And that was a big deal. And going forward, every chief would like put their own little tweak on the uniform.
Yes.
Beck allowed us to not wear ties with long sleeve shirts.
Yeah.
And it might have been Bratton that did that. But every little chief trying to appease the morale of the department,
Of course.
said, "Hey, let me do this."
Yeah.
Bratton brought in semi-automatic weapons.
Correct. Yeah.
Little tweaks here or there.
And it's for morale. Totally. I hate it wearing the Class A with the tie, and I'm sure I can speak for thousands of officers like, oh, you know what? No tie.
Well, especially it's 110 degrees,
And people don't understand that.
in the valley,
They don't understand that.
and you're searching a school, and you're in Class A's with a long sleeve shirt and a tie on.
That's just not. That's not cool at all. I got a question. 1992 riots. Where were you? Where were you assigned, and what was your? What did you do?
Okay, so precursor to that, the night of the Rodney King incident, I'm working Foothill Division,
Okay.
PM watch, and I was overtime. My partner and I, we go back to the station and we're filling out our log, and the help call comes out. CHP's in pursuit, the 210 freeway, get off at Paxton, come back around on the Foothill Boulevard. They stop. There was a restaurant there at Foothill and Osborne called Baby Beef.
Okay.
It was a abandoned restaurant, but it was called Baby Beef. That's where the Rodney King incident happened. So I hear the help call. We jump in the police car, and we're going code 3 to the help call down Osborne Boulevard. And I hear all these units go code 6. And we're over time. I go, you know what? Let's just go back to the station. I went back to the station, and I was not at the Rodney King incident. Oh. However, going forward, a couple days later, I'm sitting in the detective room. And in the back area at night, we would all sit in the back there and do all our reports and everything. And some Bright City employee decided to hang. This was a Sunday night because I remember it vividly. Employees hung these like 100-pound console TVs from the ceiling. They were like all throughout the detectives. So it's 10 o'clock at night. We have it on Channel 5. And Ted Brazino comes walking into the detective area there, okay, writing reports. And Ted goes, I'm going to be on TV. They're going to show me kick the shit out of this guy. So we watch it. We go, okay. It really did not arise any big thing.
Right.
Within 2 hours, it's like a semi of IA investigators showed up at the station. And we thought at that point that it was an in-custody death in the jail.
Okay.
Come to find out, it's the Rodney King incident. Whew. So I get subpoenaed to testify in the Rodney King trial because Ted Brazino kept saying that I was there and I tried to stop the incident. And I was supposed to testify how Ted came into that report writing room and said, watch me kick the shit out of this guy.
Wow. Yeah, and Ted Brazino was one of the 4
Correct.
that were criminally filed on in, I think, at one point.
Correct.
Yeah, no, definitely a landmark case. You know what? I have, and you know him, he's going to be a future guest, Peter Harris, who actually, he was one of my training officers like you were. And I remember him explaining to me, he goes, Marlon, you know what? There's a frame of the video of the Rodney King incident. And I went code 6, you know, I was at scene, and I missed a frame by like inches. And had I would have gotten within the actual frame of inches, I would have been followed. My life would have been completely different.
Well,
right?
what would happen is you would come in on a Wednesday, middle of the deployment period. And deployment periods is the time schedule, 28 days we work, and then a new schedule, it's a 28-day period. You would come in the middle of the deployment schedule and they go, Marlon, we really appreciate all the work you've done here at Foothill, but you now work Devonshire tomorrow. Please clean out your locker and respond to Devonshire tomorrow morning because you no longer work Van Nuys or Foothill Division.
Wow.
And there were so many active complaints in Foothill Division, they had a lieutenant and an IA team assigned. They had an actual office at Foothill to handle all the complaints going on because all these additional complaints that started coming in based on the allegations and beatings and all this other stuff.
Wow. Thanks for all that stuff. Look, I'm going to go down this because I know you and I want to talk about the incident that happened to you. I mean, this is good stuff. Did she get retired in 1992? There was a mobile field force implementation, right, where we go out and do crowd controls. And
correct. Mobile field force didn't exist till then.
Wow. And back then. And then Dallas Super Bowl Pasadena in 1993. That's when they won. I would imagine good highlight. You were there?
Yeah, I was assigned to the city area, and we just walked around all night. They wanted high visibility.
Okay, now you're stepping into my passion, the FIFA World Cup '94, man. Let me ask you, did you even like soccer at all, or
what's soccer?
You were just like, what are these crazy people?
They're running around chasing this ball with their feet. What's going on?
And it was Brazil against Italia, and you probably didn't even know how many Brazilians and Italians were actually in the city of Pasadena.
Not a clue.
Wow. Let's see. The earthquake in 1994. I'm sure a lot. I actually worked at the Northridge Hospital in the emergency room. That was a big, huge event. Compressed work schedule, 1994.
Yep.
So we went from 8 hours to,
Well, they started some pilot programs, one compressed work schedule in every bureau, and then ultimately they adopted the compressed work schedule, 310, 312, and 410.
Nice. O.J. Simpson trial in 1995. You have the UCLA March Madness. That's right. In 1996. Rampart scandal in 97. And, well, we definitely have to talk about this. The North Hollywood bank robbery.
Yep.
Did you respond?
I was working PM watch, came in and assumed patrol positions.
Okay. The flooding, El Nino, another one. Biggie Smalls was killed in 1997.
Yep.
And now we're talking about police rifles in 1998. Any reasons why it was implemented in 1998? Just out of curiosity. Or it just took that long?
It took that long. It took that long to go through the process after the North Hollywood bank robbery.
They felt as though we needed them after that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Oh, the Jewish community shooting here in the San Fernando Valley. You were the first unit on scene in 1999?
Yeah. When I arrived, so shooting calls are kind of strange because, as you remember, every once in a while you would get like somebody telephoning and saying, hey, there's a shooting over here, and like one person. When you have multiple phone calls coming in saying there's a shooting going on, you know that it's a pretty good shooting.
Right.
I was coming back from the academy qualifying, and I had a probationer with me. We show up, and there's a young boy out in front of the Jewish Community Center bleeding out. Step over him. I had a slug rifle, a slug shotgun at that point. Enter into the lobby, and I literally, I don't know how I missed the suspect, but I missed him because there was still smoke. You could smell the dust. Mm-hmm. You could see the haze from the rounds falling to the ground in the lobby. Ultimately, he ended up going and shooting and killing a mailman. And as far as I know, he's still in custody.
Oh, man, I got to tell you, Daddy, I must have been off. I was on probation in 1999, so I do remember it. I wasn't involved. Let's see, we have Y2K in 2000, the Democratic National Convention. I was there in 2000 in downtown. The consent decree, 2001, that's right. We run a federal consent decree as it relates to what happened in Rampart, the scandal.
Correct.
Then we have the 9/11 terrorist attacks. I know that kind of changed everything in terms of how to deal with all these checks and, with everything that had to do with terrorist attacks.
Correct.
Both domestic and overseas as well. Let's see. Lakers championship. Yeah, it was kind of crazy, right? In 2001.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys respond?
Oh, yeah.
Well, who didn't respond, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody's
all 300 from the city.
That's right. All 300. All hands on deck, right? Then Mayday, 2007. Well, yeah, that's... Now, familiar with that in MacArthur Park, in order to disperse news media, it changed how we respond and deal with the media as it relates to big events. Sadly, the Chatsworth train crash in 2008. I know one of our beloved officers.
Spree Deshay. She worked for me at Wilshire.
Yeah, and she was killed in that train crash. And yeah, lo and behold, it was 2009. No longer required to wear a tie with long sleeves.
Yep, see?
That's right. Yeah.
That was a big deal.
It was huge.
It's funny how little things.
It does. That's all we ever wanted.
That is such a minute little thing, but it changes morale of the organization for a period of time.
Absolutely. Michael Jackson, the funeral in 2009. Lakers won again in 2010. Carmageddon.
Yeah, that's when they closed the 405 down.
That's right. They did. Occupy LA in 2011. The space shuttle, that was huge, man. We had to move this thing from where to the Expo Museum. I know that.
Yeah.
Where do we start?
It
was far.
Yeah, because they had to take trees down and wires.
All kinds of stuff. And we were involved, of course. The Dorner.
Yeah.
Yes. We definitely would love to have... the interesting part about Dorner, the story that has not been told that I wish in the near future to get, is what happened in their border rights. With the false statement.
Correct.
It's something that, lack of better words, it's what kind of started his rage with the manifesto, and I'm sure everybody knows about the Dorner incident. Body-worn video became alive and well in 2015, absolutely. Civil unrest in 2020 because of the George Floyd incident.
Correct.
You guys respond as well?
Oh, yeah. Mobile field force.
Was there a lot of events happening in the Valley as well? Or because for Dorner in 2013, let me ask you this, Hal, any involvement in the Dorner incident?
So as an ancillary position, yes. So
Okay.
I was watch commander at Van Nuys the night that all that started breaking. And what was going on is his manifesto was released, and
Okay.
my lieutenant, Lieutenant Jim Gavin, who I highly suggest you reach out to, he would be an outstanding guest.
I've tried.
So Lieutenant Gavin was listed in the manifesto, and I had to send several units code 3 to his residence for a security detail, because at that point we had absolutely no idea what was going on.
No, absolutely.
It was so out of character for the entire department that somebody was targeting named officers.
Yeah.
And then the subsequent search going on for him, that the whole department was basically on edge until it was resolved.
Completely. I was an associate advocate in internal affairs doing border rights, and I can tell you the story that I hope to do in the future is to tell what happened in that hearing with Christopher Dorner facing a false statement as it relates to his incident, and it's almost as if that's what ignited his rage, and a lot of things happen, and you and I can talk and have our opinions about that for a while. Body-worn video, absolutely, 2015. That changed everything. You know what, and we'll get to that because I know you were a watch commander at, for a very long time at Van Nuys Division, and I'm sure we can talk about demonstrably false because
Absolutely.
that's an adjudication that should be used more often than we do.
Absolutely.
And then civil unrest 2020, the pandemic, the civil unrest George Floyd incident, a lot of response, not just here, throughout the nation. The chokehold ban, yes, it was abolished.
Yes.
The governor pretty much said, you know what, the carotid neck restraint,
Correct.
if you will, that's no longer can no longer be used as an application of force.
Correct. Even for deadly force.
Even for deadly force. 2022, the Super Bowl, Rams versus the Bengals, and then I got to tell you, man, this is another good one too. The pretextual stop policy.
Yes.
That really, I'm sure it had an impact a lot on service for cause or even work in patrol.
Absolutely.
Summit of the America's Mobilization, the Roe v. Wade demonstration, the All-Stars that were here, and you went through 9 chiefs of police.
Correct. All in 33 years.
All in 33 years.
That was a quick 33 years.
And then, sadly, 35 officers have been killed, and 8 of them from COVID,
Correct.
and 7 American presidents.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I do know is the push when I came on in 98, when it started in 94, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know Bill Clinton back in 93 pushed for a heavy order that we need to have as many police officers.
Right.
And coincidentally, the riots just happened, and so you know what? Let's push. And I know I've had partners and FTOs from 94. There was big classes. 95 was huge.
My class was 102.
There you go.
In 89. We
Right.
graduated 60.
Imagine that. Yeah. And so in the early 90s, all the way up to, I think in 1999, 2000, it started tapering down.
Well, they went on a freeze for a long
Yes,
time, too.
after 2000, for like
Correct.
3 or
And
4
there
years.
was no hiring for 3 or 4 years.
Absolutely. So, without further ado, look, you became sergeant back in, let's see, you made it in what, 2001?
Yeah, right around there.
Right around there. And then you've been a sergeant ever since then.
Yeah.
So, I'm sitting here with, 20 years of experience as a sergeant.
Yeah, yeah.
At any point did you want to take it a step further?
Well, that's kind of a sore spot. So what happened is, when I came on the department, you could be chief of police with a high school diploma. Mm-hmm. Somewhere in the 33 years, the department decided that you cannot promote if you don't have a college degree.
Oh.
So I'm a high school graduate with, a couple of years kicking around college, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I was unable to promote past sergeant because when I made sergeant, you did not need a college degree.
Right.
Then they implemented that policy, which, if you think about it, I've worked for some really educated, stupid people. And I've worked for with some really smart, uneducated people.
Yeah.
The department has really done a disservice to itself by putting that policy into effect, because you've got people that had military service for years and they did not have the ability to go to college, and they come out and they are absolutely fantastic leaders.
Yes.
But the department or the city, I'm not saying, maybe it's not the department, maybe it's the city, says you can't lead because you don't have a college education.
Yeah, no, having been a high school dropout and, for many reasons, I ended up in law school, to show a reflection on my daughter, hey, education's important. More than anything, I got to be honest with you, getting my undergrad, a lot of writing, a lot of commitment, right? And those are things that you just need. But I couldn't agree with you more. Just because you have one doesn't mean that you're cut out to do this type of function.
A lot of educated, stupid people.
A lot of educated, stupid people. Roger that. I like that. I'm going to keep that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to write that so I can keep that for my future episodes. Okay, so look, Al, of course, let's talk about you had an incident in your career. I'm going to give the floor to you because what I do know, this was a critical incident, is what they call it. We call it a categorical use of force. This was an officer-involved shooting in which somehow, some way, the department decided to say, hey, Sarge, you should have done something, or maybe you had maybe you didn't think about these duties and responsibilities. So I'll leave the floor to you, and we'll go from there, man.
Okay, so what happens is I'm the watch commander at Van Nuys Division, and we had one sergeant in, me, and one sergeant out in the field, and there was a supervisor request, and the other sergeant was tied up on an incident. So I respond out to the incident, needing a supervisor, and resolve that. As I'm heading back to the station, I hear a code 3 call of a shooting in progress, man with a rifle at a house.
Okay.
And there's nobody to respond, and it's assigned to a North Hollywood unit. So I cancel the North Hollywood unit, and I respond, area integrity. And as I pull up, I'm down the street, and it's this giant mansion in amongst these normal houses. I'm down the street, I'm behind a tree, I'm directing additional units in, and I'm kind of giving a synopsis of
yes,
that
absolutely.
part of it. And I have 2 additional supervisors finally show up, and they take control of the incident down at this residence. I'm still down the street.
Okay.
They create a search team. Search team goes into the house. They clear the house. As they're clearing the house, this car drives by in front of the house, and it bottoms out. And I hear this bang. And I go, okay, that must be the car that bottoms out. A couple minutes later, one of the supervisors that's in the house contacts me and says, we just had an accidental discharge of a rifle.
Okay.
And what happened is the officer is clearing the residence, goes into the laundry room, pops open the door, and sees their reflection in the washing machine dryer, and thinks it's a rifle, and pops off around.
Okay.
Goes through the washing machine. Nobody's hurt at all, but we have an accidental discharge, so now it's a categorical use of force.
Correct.
Once I'm notified of what happens, I come down the street once the location is clear, and I assume incident control as the ranking officer.
Okay.
While this is going on, then we make the phone calls, FID responds out, the shooting team responds out, the patrol captain from Van Nuys Division comes out, and they assume incident command for a short period of time. They leave the location, leaves me in control, incident's resolved, go back to the station. I do not ever get interviewed for the OIS for my part of it. They have me write a statement, and that's it.
That's it. So far, so good.
So usually use of force review board happens almost a year after the initial OIS, depending on what happens. Mm-hmm. And to to step back for a minute, generally on a categorical use of force, the officer-involved shooting team creates this PowerPoint presentation. They present it to the chief of police within 72 hours to make a determination if officers should be assigned home, what should happen. Everything at that point is good. Now it goes to the use of force review board. And what happens is the patrol commanding officer or the commanding officer of the division where the OIS, officer involved shooting, occurs, presents this presentation in front of the use of force board.
Yes.
And usually what happens is, and this was a different captain than the captain that initially responded out a year prior.
Okay.
So usually that captain calls all the participants in, interviews each one of them. They go over the use of force report. He talks to each officer. And when I originally came on, it was the department's position, the league's position, the officer should not go to the use of force board.
Okay.
Because if you're at the use of force board, it provided the use of force board to ask questions of that officer that were not contained potentially in the report.
Mm-hmm.
So that over the years changed, and the primary persons involved in the use of force were recommended to go. I was considered a witness to this whole incident because I'm down the street behind a tree.
Yes.
I'm nowhere near any of this.
When it actually when he engages and it goes down.
I am nowhere near it.
Yeah.
As I said, I thought a car came by and bottomed out. Yeah. I didn't know it was a rifle shot going off. So they have the board. They come back the next day, and I'm told that they have findings against me. I'm like, they have findings against me? How's that possible? I'm a witness. No, since you were the ranking officer at the incident, command and control, they found administrative disapproval to you for lack of command and control of the incident.
Lack of command and control. Imagine that. Go ahead.
And to compound that, within the use of force board, you generally have commanding officers, you have representatives from tactics, from use of force.
Absolutely.
You have a peer. So for me, they had a sergeant on the board.
Yes.
The officers, they had police officers. One of the captains that was part of the use of force board was the patrol captain that responded out and assumed incident commander of the incident. But no, there's no conflict there, right?
No, of course not.
There's no conflict of interest.
Even though somehow, some way, he became the incident commander.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
So generally what happens is when you have a finding, you get basically one of three findings.
Correct.
So I had administrative disapproval.
Yes.
And they came back with recommendation for extensive retraining.
Correct.
And administrative a notice to correct.
Correct.
Generally,
and if I may interject, the other option would be a internal affairs complaint investigation.
Correct. Exactly.
Just so you know the complexity of our use of force review board process. But go ahead.
Correct. So, where was I?
We were at your notice to correct.
Okay, so I got the notice to correct.
Yes, you did.
So
you were deficient.
I was deficient. So in order for me to fight this, one of the other things with this is I was one of, so you figure that the department's been doing this for years and years and years.
Yes.
And they only come back with one finding, generally.
Correct.
I was the lucky lottery winner, and I had two findings. I had the notice to correct and the extensive retraining.
Correct.
Which generally never happens. So what happens is I get assigned to extensive training, which was LETAC, which is law enforcement
tactical application course.
Like
in other words, you got to go there and...
Right. It's a 4-day course with updated training, which I didn't mind. If they're going to send me to training, great.
Great.
Send me to training.
Yeah.
I get to shoot on the city's dime. Not a problem.
I'm good.
Exactly. And then I had the notice to correct. So I had to write a Scully for the extensive retraining.
Yeah.
And to fight that had to go to employee representative relations group.
Okay.
And
kind of like HR.
Correct. And the chief's representative had to find a finding on that.
Okay.
Then for the administrative appeal, I had to have an admin hearing.
So you had this administrative appeal hearing as it relates to the administrative disapproval
Correct.
for your tactics,
Correct.
lack of command and control.
Correct. So
Fancy way of saying your supervisory oversight
it was lacking.
it was lacking. You didn't. I would take it. You just didn't do much.
I didn't. I shouldn't have hid behind the tree while all this was going on.
You shouldn't have heard that the sound that you heard was the bottom of a car that banged.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, go ahead.
So the ERG part of it, that
Yes.
took about a year and a half.
Okay.
The admin appeal took 4 years.
Yeah.
And I won both. I completely was exonerated from the entire incident. However, what happens is with the consent decree, the department created this system called Teams.
Yes.
And it's a tracking system that tracks use of force, training, collisions. Basically, it's our history on the department.
Yeah. It's your jacket.
Correct. So what happens is when the use of force board finds an out of policy use of force, it goes to the police commission, and the police commission rules on it. The police commission concurred with the department being administrative disapproval. So by me winning the appeal, you would think that I'm exonerated and that should be removed from my teams.
Of course.
But it's not, because there's no policy in place to remove it from the teams once the police commission has a finding. So my team says administrative disapproval, not guilty, administrative appeal.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to potential promotions, and I have to have this long explanation
Yeah.
of why I won this incident, basically because I failed to take control when I heard that
I
sound.
got to tell you, man. So I know that we talked about this before. We were recording on the episode. You went through a hearing, and at this point, you had a hearing officer, right, and a civilian hearing officer, and you guys submitted briefs, right? Both the
Correct.
defense, who you represented by Officer
ORS.
Rap Section, by
Correct.
ORS, my beloved alum. I'm an ORS alum, and the department had the department advocate. I'm Department from Internal Affairs alum as well, so I was on both sides. You submitted these briefs, for the hearing officer to read before, which is a good idea, by the way. Hey, you know what? I'm the hearing officer. Let me hear these. Let me read these briefs and pretty much tell me what your position is.
Right.
And the outcome was, you show up on that day, so you have the hearing day one, and what happened?
I won. I mean, literally, the hearing took 15 minutes.
Yeah. So the hearing officer just pretty much said, you know what, the department got this wrong.
The department was wrong.
And you know what, Al, and as we're getting ready to wrap all this up, I got to ask you, which is super important while we have this platform. I know we don't have these conversations, and I'm all about lessons learned and takeaways, man. I mean, what can we take away besides the fact that, yeah, it took so long, but what else? I mean, what did you have to go through all this, especially being a 33-year veteran?
So I was fortunate. I wasn't assigned home. I didn't lose any salary. I felt really strongly about my reputation. And that's where it hurt. That being said, lessons learned is, as much as it wasn't a struggle, but I learned from this. I learned so much from this. I learned the way the organization worked. I learned how you need to be prepared, and you need to have the knowledge of what different avenues you have to go down to protect yourself, and the different entities that you could use to represent yourself and protect yourself.
Yeah.
Very, very important. It's very important for young officers that have been around for a while, because fortunately, I mean, you figure 99% of complaint allegations are false.
Yes.
They really are. I mean, if you look at, so the organization is now 9,200 people, and you figure how many false complaints come out of that 9,200?
A lot.
However, if you look at the command staff, which is such a small cadre compared to the lower ranks, how many sustained complaints the command staff are getting?
Yeah.
that percentage is way higher.
Yes. Good
So
point.
what does that say about the organization?
Yeah.
Is our command staff truly doing what they're supposed to be doing properly? Are they truly representing the organization properly?
The reflection is not so positive. One, two, you're right. What I was going to say is, and how fair and impartial they're being with allegations of command staff officers that were sustained, but yet something similar
Yes.
is being adjudicated by the commanding officer of what he or she sustained.
And some of these commanding officers have egregious complaints that
Yes.
they had, and now they're making the ultimate decision. They're
Absolutely.
sending people home. They're taking their livelihood away.
Yeah.
These officers can't pay their mortgage.
Yeah.
They're working security jobs at CVS to pay their mortgage until the resolution of these complaints that take sometimes years. Look at 4 years, and my complaint was small potatoes.
No, totally, 100%. I do know one of our guests, Brian Bixler, with you recall the FI scandal that happened with Metropolitan Division.
Brian worked for me when he was a boot sergeant.
There you go, and Brian, to this very day, there's still out of the batch of these 8 officers, it's been over 4 years, and they still haven't, completely done it.
But see, Brian is. You would hope that the command staff would be Brian Bixler's.
Yeah.
Because they handle both sides. They have the compassion for the officer, but yet they have the knowledge of the organization and how things are supposed to function.
That's right. Yeah. To be fair and impartial. Absolutely. Look, we're getting close to the end here. I'm gonna ask you. You can just kind of run it down for me. Best and worst. Let's go with worst. What's the worst thing? And I know this is the one. Maybe I should just go with best because I know something sticks out.
So the worst is the 35 officers that lost their lives during the time that I was on. It's tragic to have to stand at attention at their funeral and to see their kids run up to that casket, that flag-covered casket, and to know that they're never going to have that person in their lives again. That ultimately has got to be the worst. But yet you've got to honor those officers because they sacrificed. Those officers and their families have sacrificed the ultimate. And that has got to be the worst.
Oh, absolutely. You know what, Al? I've only been to 3. I could have gone to many, and I echo the tragedy for sure. Let's go with best. Talk to me. Something funny, rewarding. What was the best that you can remember?
There's so many good things.
Yeah.
I mean,
which one sticks out?
Well, first of all, the department, the organization provided a livelihood for me. It allowed me to put my kids through college. It allows me to have this great pension now that I'm retired. I think the one thing that really sticks out is the ability to mentor the younger officers. I don't know if you remember when you sat next to me, I always told you guys, when you promote over me, remember me, I treated you well. So make sure you treat me well when you're exonerating my complaints.
But yet I got to sustain, and I'm not going to do that.
Exactly. But the positive is developing the young officers, creating the livelihood that they have the ability to provide for their families. It was a fantastic job. I still think it's a good job, but you really have to know what you're getting into these days. The days of us getting out of the car, handling a radio call and jumping in, now you're activating a camera, you're doing this, you're doing that, and if you don't do it properly, you're going to get in trouble for it. And you're going to learn the internal affairs complaint system. So the positive thing is the mentorship and the camaraderie and the teamwork and the brotherhood within the organization.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. You and I spoke before we got on to this episode. Look, I love this trip down memory lane. I got to ask you as we conclude, you've been on for north of 33 years, man. Look, if I were to tell you if you were to become chief or just a lawmaker for one day, what do you think that would be in terms of our department or any department?
Okay. This would be my ruling for our department. So what happens is, and I'll use you as an example, not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
Please.
So you're a sergeant and you go to internal affairs.
Yes.
Did you ever get in a black, other than milking out all the overtime at TSD and every possible overtime position you could work?
Yes.
Did you ever get in a black and white again and handle a radio call?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So this is what I think should happen. You've got all these people that essentially they come on, they've been a police officer for 2-3 years, and they go to an inside position and they never see the field again. And they're making all these decisions for the organization, and they're basing pretty much those decisions on their 3 years of experience in a black and white. So what my policy would be is when you promote and or you move, there's term limits on every single position within the department.
Yeah.
Internal affairs theoretically has term limits. 5 years, I think it was 5 years.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to leave. But what truly happens is you've done your 5 years in admin section. Now you go over to crim section
And the clock
and you're
starts.
doing another 5 years.
That's
now.
right, the clock starts.
Now you leave crim section, you're working special operations, and you're another 5 years. You've never seen that field in over 15 years.
Absolutely. It's a cushy gig, man.
And that happens with these administrative positions.
Yes.
So again, it goes back to an organization of 9,200 people with 300 people pushing a black and white on a daily basis.
Amen to that.
And the institutional knowledge, I'll use you as an example. You came out of IA and you went to TSD.
Yes.
And you went to the complaint unit. You were able to provide that institutional knowledge that you had within the advocate section, ORS, to roll call trainings within TSD.
Yes.
Think about all these different entities that could learn from all these different people with all these positions going back out in the field and mentoring the young officers. That's the policy I would change. Everybody goes back out in the field and everybody gets back in patrol, the backbone of the department.
That's right.
And assists with the growing of the department.
Couldn't have said it any better. Hey, look, we're at the conclusion of this awesome conversation that we had, and I appreciate all that. Any parting words that you can tell a young officer that's coming on the job, that has maybe 2 or 3 years on the job, a young sergeant? Man, you were a sergeant you sat in that chair as a watch commander. You've learned so much. Any advice you can give anyone as we leave?
Stay off of social media. Social media is the devil as far as I'm concerned. It creates so many problems. If you go on some of these Facebook sites within the department organization and all they do is bicker and fight it with each other.
Yeah.
It's not productive. It doesn't help anything.
Yeah.
If you have something to say to somebody, pull them aside and talk to them.
That's right. I'm sure you speak from experience. You know what? I couldn't agree with you more. Look, sometimes the reflection could be very, very negative, and if you start ranting on one of these social media sites, stand by. Something just might happen. So, look, man, thank you for coming, Al. I really, truly appreciate it. I know you're enjoying retirement. You look great. I think I'm going to have to take you up on you say you had a motorhome. You're traveling across the nation?
Yep.
Good for you.
Just got back from Sedona doing some hiking with my wife. Wonderful. Great. Retirement is awesome. I highly recommend it.
For all these out there. Well, look, hey, Al, thank you so much. We're going to wrap up this episode. Again, don't forget to subscribe, push the like button, download it, and definitely share it. And a big shout out to the Titan Group, professional investigators who they're a private investigative firm that can do many different types of investigations as our sponsor. Thank you, and happy New Year to everyone. And like I always said, and always remember, be safe out there, and don't forget to go Code 6. Thank you.